Welcome to our webinar. Optimal Coaching and Consulting is excited to provide you with our blind spots derailing your leadership potential. Discover how successful leaders overcome these hidden dangers, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. I know some of you out there are going to find today's webinar transformational for you as a leader. I will be your moderator. My name is Sherry McDonald, one of Optimal's principals, and at Optimal, it's the value of our experience. Our 11 coaches and consultants are a team of PhD, highly credentialed, certified coaches and consultants. We have been employed with internationally known consulting firms and our executives and senior leaders in Fortune 500 to Fortune 50, as well as many smaller and emerging companies. Together, we have a united passion to help leaders make positive changes in themselves and their organizations. And over the course of my own career as an HR executive, I discovered blind spots that seemed apparent to others around me but caught me by total surprise. And interesting, the competencies that were my strength at times just seemed to disappear. And you're going to learn more about why that happens today. The Polarity Management Concepts that our speaker will cover today have been invaluable to me personally and in my capacity as a leadership coach as I work with clients at Optimal. Our speaker today, Margaret Seidler, resides in Charleston, South Carolina. She is the author of Power Surge, a conduit for enlightened leadership. Margaret is one of 12 certified Polarity Management Masters in North America. She often speaks on and leads others to the discovery of how polarity management uncovers blind spots and provides clarity, leading to success. Margaret works with companies, organizations, and academic institutions. She recently spoke at Notre Dame and is scheduled to speak at the Carlson School of Management this fall, and we're excited to have her back in Minneapolis. We're going to kick off the session today with some leadership fundamentals. All of the leadership research out there repeatedly concludes that self-awareness is the #1 competency most associated with leadership success. So what does that mean? Self-awareness means that we're constantly trying to be aware of who we are, how can we build on our strengths, but more importantly, we don't want to have any blind spots. Repeat, no blind spots. And research shows that the average leader, or a person for that matter, has 3 to 4 blind spots. And blind spots are those behaviors that unwittingly, they catch us off guard. You're totally unaware of them. Often they bring us down and they can bring our companies down. Left unchecked, I have personally observed over the years in working with leaders in multiple organizations, both big and small, how blind spots can actually derail even the most successful leaders. At this time, I want to pass the controls to Margaret, who will cover the objectives of today's webinar.
Great. Thanks again, Sherry, and to all of you at Optimal for having me with you today. And thanks to the folks across the country that are interested in improving their own leadership performance in life, both personally and professionally. Really, when we talked about today's session, I came up with 4 what I consider key objectives for each of you to really work on today. The first is to really look at yourself, to look in the mirror, and to see yourself more completely and get real clear about what makes you successful. At the same time, looking at those things that might get in your way and might, in fact, keep you from being successful. The last thing that I want to do today is help you come up with some ways to apply what you've learned so that you can immediately start working for better leadership performance. The first thing that I want to do, though, before we get into the slides is I want to give you a test, and those of you that know me know that I love to give tests. So if you, in fact, were able to get to print out the handout that was sent out yesterday, let me read from it. If you haven't, I'm going to show you what the handout looks like in just a second. But basically, let me give you the instructions. In your handout, what I want you to notice that there are 2 columns that are related. The items in the left-hand column are related to the corresponding item in the right-hand column. So what I want you to think about for just a second is activity and rest are related. So what I want you to do is indicate which of these 2 items you prefer. So in general, do you prefer activity or rest? Now don't go through anywhere else on the test. Just write down or circle, do you prefer, in fact, activity or rest when you live your life? So let's go on with the rest of the test. If you'll notice, I've got, in the rest of the paper, you've got 10 other pairs that I want you to choose from. What I want you to do, though, please, is I want you to think about yourself in a work environment, somewhere where you're actually leading others to get a task accomplished and to get some sort of goal achieved, when you're literally working with others. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go through the list, and I'm going to ask you to circle what one do you really prefer when you lead others. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do with your test is I'm going to ask you to go back through it, and before you actually write anything else on your test, I want you to make sure you're really clear on my instructions, because sometimes people get them kind of backwards. What I'm going to ask you to do next is go back through the 10 items that you circled and place an asterisk by any of your circles, any of the items that you selected as your preference, where the choice between the two was what I call or refer to as a no-brainer. And what I mean by that if you had to choose between a focus on task versus a focus on relationship, you clearly had a strong preference of one or the other. You didn't have to say, ooh, is it task, or ooh, is it relationship. You, in fact, know that clearly you have a strong preference of one over the other. So only place an asterisk anywhere there was a really strong preference of one over the other in terms of how you lead. You may have no asterisks. You may have 10 asterisks. You can have 5. There's no right or wrong answer here. What I want to do right now is I want to talk a little bit about my own leadership and my own leadership blind spots. This is a picture of me, Margaret Seidler from Charleston, South Carolina, born there in 1952. And I was always a person who knew where I was headed, and I wanted to get other people to take me there. As a matter of fact, I'm sort of like Miss Bigelow here in this cartoon, where being from Charleston, I was a female who was actually breaking the glass ceiling, having jobs where no woman had gone before. It's really interesting. I had had several really big jobs, and in the 1990s, I was actually working as a manager for electric and gas utility here in South Carolina, and I really felt like I was a rising star, and I had gotten selected as one of 7 people throughout the state that was actually going to work as an internal change agent. And part of being that internal change agent, part of that training as an internal change agent, was that I got a leader feedback, 360-degree leader feedback assessment done on me in 1992. It was the assessment where there were about 80 leadership behaviors that I got to rank myself on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent, about how frequently I actually did these things that made me an excellent leader. And I went through the test, and it was really easy, and I was just answering it 4, 4, 5, 5, 4, 4, 5, 5. And as we all know, what makes it 360 is I wasn't the only person rating myself. And when the scores came back, I had lots of 1s and 2s. I had some 3s. I think my boss thought I was doing a pretty good job, but the rest of my peers, my direct reports, really thought I was an average or a poor leader. And that's when I really discovered, and my husband Bob helped me talk through this, was that I'd in fact really been just a legend in my own mind. I'd had great intentions. I worked harder than most. I really thought I was doing a great job. I just didn't know that my impact didn't match my intentions. One of the strengths that I did have, though, was resilience. And so in 92, I made a commitment to find out, what does it take? What does it take to be an effective leader? If I thought I was a great leader, and I really wasn't, what does it take? Is it some special gift from above, or is it a skill set? I did a lot of studying communication skills and finding out about listening to others and resolving conflict. But it was really in the year 2001, when I was living in Minnesota, that I met Dr. Barry Johnson, who's the founder of Polarity Management. And he's the one that really shared with me the true secret, the true accelerator for helping people succeed in leadership roles. The magic bullet that Barry shared with me that I'm sharing with you today is that motivational values come in pairs. Let me say it again. Motivational values come in pairs. While it might not sound really exciting, it's really completely true, because if we fail to recognize that what we value, our core values, our way of leading others, isn't coming in pairs, that's what makes us strong will in fact make us weak over time, and that's in fact predictable. What we call these pairs is polarities, and they're paired values that are often competing that really need each other over time to, in fact, achieve a certain level of performance and to sustain it. We call it the infinity factor. It's the ongoing nature of polarities. There's this energy system which is never-ending that really holds those two poles in place and helps us get the best of both over time. Polarities have always existed, as a matter of fact. We've always been managing them. Right now, I can imagine that each of us are managing the same polarity, and we're doing a pretty fine job. I can't see you. I've got to believe that you are, though, and that's the polarity of inhale and exhale. And so what we know is what our greater purpose or our higher purpose is to live, and our deeper fear is to avoid dying, is that we need to both inhale and exhale, and we need to get the best of those very different poles in the polarity, those two very important things that we value. We need to get the best over time. Another pretty important polarity that some of us manage, some better than others, is that we love activity, right? You circled activity or rest on your test. Sometimes, though, we love activity so much and we feel good and we have exercise and we feel fit and energized that sometimes we actually neglect getting the rest that we need over time. And so what I know about polarity, and this example of activity and rest is true of all polarities, is that there are positive results that each of us get from focusing on activity. And if we look at the bottom of the slide on the left, that those positives, in fact, can turn into negatives when we have too much activity and don't get any rest. What's interesting, though, if the majority of us circled activity, and many usually do, that even though we know that we're burned out and we're exhausted and we're stressed out and we're beginning to make mistakes, we have a natural resistance to go to the antidote, which is, in fact, getting the positive results from focusing on rest, which is getting rejuvenated, re-energized, maybe even reflecting. While we may enjoy rest for a short period of time, we also know from a polarity perspective that we can get a different set of negative results from focusing on too much rest and neglecting getting any activity. We might become unhealthy. We might become lazy. We might, in fact, gain weight. So what our goal is to get the best over time and to have that infinity energy source serving us well, helping us get the best of both over time and avoiding the worst of either.